Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Matty here from Chill TCG. Today we're going to be taking a look at the championship winning deck list from the Chill Series number 17, which wrapped up this past Wednesday. Of course, this tournament was won by Joshua Sutherland, and he was playing this very cool and really well thought out Lucmetal Zacian deck list. So big shout out to Josh for winning this tournament with 220 players. This was the first time actually that Lucmetal won Chill Series tournament in 17 tournaments, so definitely super cool. We're going to go ahead and just take a look at this deck list, guys. But before we get into it, let's go and take a look at his matchups and sort of the games that he played. All right, so these are the matchups that Josh played at the Chill Series number 17 tournament. Now, you'll notice that we do have two phases here. This is sort of just to combat having not having to do like a top 32. We've changed this in recent weeks, so instead of doing 9 rounds and top 32, we do 8 rounds and then 5 more rounds of best of on Swiss, and then we go straight to top 8, and the rounds are a little bit shorter. So things are a little bit different, but players have seemed to like this sort of, this new format for the tournament. But looking at it here in phase 1, all 8 games he got wins. He went 8-0 in phase 1, which is just absolutely crazy. Went into phase 2 as the number 1 seed. So if we take a look here, he beat Clayton Fagan playing Lucmetal, who actually went very deep into the tournament. So his first game of the tournament was against another Lucmetal, which was, I think, the second highest placing Lucmetal, or maybe the third or fourth highest placing Lucmetal in the tournament. But somebody who went to top cut, I believe, if not, got very far in the tournament. So definitely a really close little mirror matchup there. Josh was a fantastic player. It was best of 1, so you never really know how those matchups go. But it's surprising that this matchup didn't go to time, to be fair. But at the same time, things can end really quick. So I don't know exactly what happened in that matchup, but interesting that his first game of the tournament was against a Lucmetal, and he did get the win there. He got a win against Rillaboom Rawag, and I think that Lucmetal has a pretty good matchup against that deck. For sure, you know what I mean? Mewtwo, of course, isn't, it's not a grass-type Pokemon, so the resistance to grass with all his Pokemon isn't really a factor in that matchup, but I believe that Lucmetal, it does resist Psychic, so that can be obviously a factor as well. But overall, I think that matchup's not terrible for him. He beat Pikarom there, and then he beat an ADP. Those two are some of the highest revered decks in the format, so it's definitely cool to see him get a win in the mirror matchup, and then against Pikarom and ADP. Beat Colossal, which a lot of people, it's kind of up in the air which matchup's better, but overall, I think that in terms of tanky decks, Lucmetal is a better overall deck, and it also wins that matchup for sure because obviously you have Zamazenta's that can kind of block the Colossal there, and you have Zacian's to pick apart its bench. Overall, I think that Lucmetal does pretty much win that matchup very, consistently. Next up, he played Gabriel Semedo, who was another Lucmetal who went very far into the tournament, and he got the win over that player as well, which is definitely impressive. And then he played another ADP, Alex there, and then got the win over that. And then he played a Vinny Fernandez playing a Rillaboom deck as well. Rillaboom Rawag. The other one I think wasn't running Mewtwo, or his wasn't running Mewtwo maybe. I'm not sure exactly what the difference was between those decks, but yeah, so played a wide variety of decks here, and just really beat 2 Lucmetals, beat 2 ADPs, Pika, and I think the rest of them were pretty good matchups for him. But definitely an incredible run for Josh there in phase 1 of Swiss. And then moving into phase 2, he actually had a little bit of a dry streak. So after going 8-0 in phase 1, he went 0-3 to start off phase 2. Which did bring him to 8-3, but he fortunately got those 2 wins there at the end against both Eternatus, which I think Lucmetal has a pretty good matchup against as well. So I think that he was able to probably come in clutch in those 2 games to end sort of Swiss before top cut, and he was I think that's 10-3. So just enough, right, to get into top 8 for sure. And then in top 8, of course, went undefeated. And what's even more interesting is that he dodged Centiskorch all throughout Swiss rounds. All 13 games of Swiss, he didn't play a single Welder deck. And then he gets into top cut. He plays Centiskorch, ADP, and Centiskorch. And those are all 3 very, very, very easy to lose matchups for Lucmetal, realistically. ADP, I think, isn't as easy, obviously, as Centiskorch, but you definitely can lose to ADP. I mean, you definitely can lose to Centiskorch, so it's definitely interesting to see. Dodged Welder all the way through Swiss, had a nice 10-3 record, and then went into Top Cut and beat 2 Centiskorches. And if you're interested to see how he beat a Centiskorch, I actually had the Grand Finals match posted. It's uploaded to the YouTube channel. I posted it a few days ago, so if you guys are interested, definitely go check that out. I'll put an annotation up here maybe somewhere. I don't know. It's just click. I don't know. It's up there. Find it. But yeah, so obviously he had a great run in the tournament. This matchup spread is pretty interesting. He played a lot of other Zacian decks. Went 2-0 against E-Turn. He went to, I think, almost 50-50 against ADP, which is pretty interesting to note. And then went 2-1 against other Lucmetals, which again, mirror matchups can always go either way, especially in best of one, right? But yeah, beat a lot of great players too. So his resistance was very good. If you notice, even in phase 1, he beat Clayton Fagan, Godstop there, Gabriel, like all players who had very good records. Kaio Marquise, KO. All of those players had really good records after phase 1 of Swiss, and then of course in phase 2, all the players had good records. But luckily he hit those 2 E-turns at the end, which I think was a pretty good matchup for Josh. He played it pretty well. And it's just incredible to see him get the win after those top 8 matches against 2 Centiskorch decks. But let's go back. We're going to go check out the deck list, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth. Okay, we are back. All right. So now we got the deck list up here. The deck list is super cool. Again, Lucmetal is Lucmetal. There's not going to be too much stuff that you notice here that is incredibly different, but there are some things that I definitely want to note. But before we get into the details, for people that don't typically play a lot of Lucmetal or don't know too much about Lucmetal, I guess I'll just sort of go over the basics a little bit. I'm not somebody who plays Lucmetal a lot, so my description of the deck might be a little bit bad. But of course, the main goal of this deck is to, it's to play the long game and outlast your opponent and really kind of win the battle of attrition as time goes on. Of course, we have 2 Lucmetal, Lucario and Melmetal Tag Team GXs. We have 2 Zacian Vs and 2 Zamazenta Vs. 4 Zacians and 2 Zamazenta Vs. So a very, a very small amount of different Pokemon in the deck. You'll see here, like, it looks like there's 8, but these cards are the same. I just don't have the same arts, and that's my bad. But if we take a look at Lucario and Melmetal, so of course, this card is mainly played for the GX attack, like most tag teams are for the most part. Full Metal Wall GX. For the rest of your game, for 1 colorless energy, for the rest of your game, your metal Pokemon take 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks. And if you have 1 extra energy attached to this Pokemon, then you discard all energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. So not only are you making all of your metal Pokemon, which is all of your Pokemon, more tanky and live, take more damage, you're also discarding energy, which is actually a very big facet of this deck as well. When you're playing the long game, and you're playing to sort of balance your resources properly, then eventually, right, you're also going to want to diminish your opponent's resources. That way they can't really keep up with you in the late game. So it kind of just makes sense. Lucmetal, of course, it does hit for 150 for 4 energy. Not great. Sorry about that. And then 2 colorless energy, Steel Fist, and you can put a metal energy, from your deck onto this Pokemon. So the attacks aren't anything crazy. They're there. But for the most part, you're using this for the GX attack. And now, of course, everybody knows what Zacian does. Hits for 230 for 3 energy, and you also get that cool ability, Intrepid Sword, to draw 3 cards. It's just sort of the best 2-prize attacker, and it just happens to be a metal-type Pokemon, so it goes very well with Lucmetal. It also has 220 HP, which is very, very good. And with the GX boost from Lucmetal, effectively, you have to hit it for 250, but we also have things like Metal Goggles, which increase that up to 280, which is really crazy on a Pokemon like Zacian. We also have Zamazenta, so Zamazenta makes sense. It's Zacian's brother there. It doesn't do as much damage. It does 130 for 2 metal and a colorless, but you discard a special energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. That can actually be very clutch. A lot of decks are running special energies. This deck is playing Hammers. The Lucmetal GX attack discards energy, so the synergy works very well, but the main reason that we run Zamazenta, other than the fact that it is a very high HP 2-prize Pokemon that is a metal type, in a retreat cost of 2, is the ability there, Dauntless Shield. So you prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks of your opponent's Pokemon VMAX. Now, this comes in clutch a lot of times. We see a lot of VMAX decks these days do very well. And they're very popular. Things like Eternatus, Centiskorch, and Colossal even, or even some of the less played VMAX decks, like maybe Inteleon or I don't know. Just think of anything, right? That's a VMAX that people are playing. Or Cinderace, right? Just think about it. There's a lot, but those are probably the big ones, right? It's like E-Turn and Centiskorch and maybe some Colossal, but Zamazenta completely walls all of those. So even though things like Centiskorch are hitting for weakness against you, or Eternatus is doing a lot of damage, they can't hit you at all if they're in their VMAX forms, which of course they definitely want to be. And this makes Zamazenta extremely valuable for this deck in a lot of different matchups. So that's our Pokemon lineup, and you'll notice we're not running things like Dedenne, we're not running any single prize Pokemon, we're not running Crobat, and the reason for that is that, with a deck like this, you really want to play it as safe as possible, and as consistently defensive as possible, and if you put these sort of frail 2-prize Pokemon on your bench, they're easily bossed up and KO'd for multiple prize cards, and none of these support Pokemon are ever Metal-type Pokemon, so that's sort of also a reason why. I guess technically you could run like Mawile into this deck, but it's just people don't, and it kind of doesn't make too much sense to do that. For that reason, the draw support for this deck comes consistently from the 4 count of Zacians that you have. You can draw 3 cards to end your turn if you need to. But we also are running 7 different. We're running 4 Marnies, 3 Research, Guzma, Hala, Cynthia, and Caitlin. So we're running plenty of cards here to draw cards, right? Like draw support cards, even though they aren't Dedenne, even though they aren't Crobat. The thing is, this deck isn't very fast-paced, so you don't really need to dig through your deck too much every turn. It can be useful, I'm not going to lie, but the bad outweighs the good in this type of deck. So we're not running any Dedenne, we're not running any Crobat or anything like that. Just the Lukemetals, Zacians, and Zamazentas. Only 8 Pokemon, but that's really all you need for this deck, and I think a lot of Lukemetal players have kind of figured that out along the way. And Josh here is running 3 Crushing Hammers. Some people probably run 4. Some people might not run Crushing Hammers, but in my eyes, Crushing Hammers is just extraordinarily good right now, especially like if you were to manage to hit all 3 heads, it's just going to improve whatever matchup that you're playing. It's going to give you a much better chance of winning the game. And not to mention, it just goes well with that Lucario Melmetal-GX attack and Zamazenta's attack, which also discard energy. It just makes sense, and it can be very good. And if you slowly whittle away your opponent's Pokemon, you discard some energy with Lukemetal, you hit some Hammerheads, and then you maybe hit them with Zamazenta. All of a sudden, they don't have that many energies left in deck, and after you get a couple KOs as well, they might completely run out of energy, and at that point, they really can't do anything to you. So that's a big reason for this deck, why it's able to really go the distance a lot of times. Moving on, we have 2 Lillie's Pokédoll. It's just a really good stalling card. It also works as a very good pivot for Zacian, since after Zacian attacks, it has to switch out and switch back in to get rid of that effect off its attack. So that's really the only way you can attack every turn, is to switch in and out. And Lillie's Pokédoll works as a perfect pivot, but also as a stalling mechanic, so it's just an absolutely perfect card to run in this deck. Of course, Metal Saucer, it's a Zacian deck. We have only metal Pokemon. We're running 10 metal energies. Why wouldn't we run 4 Metal Saucers? It's an incredible card. So yeah, we run 4 Metal Saucers. For Pokemon Search, we don't have a whole lot. We got 4 Quick Balls. All of our Pokemon are basics. We only have 8 basic Pokemon. 4 Quick Balls is more than enough. It'll find anything that we need throughout the game, and overall, it just makes a lot of sense. 4 Switch cards. Again, this is a deck that really, with Zacian, like any Zacian deck, whether it's ADP or Lukemetal, should run 4 Switch cards for that same sort of, reasoning that I kind of said with Lillie's Pokédoll. You really need a pivot. You really need to switch out a lot of times, and we're not running Air Balloon, so you might as well run 4 Switch. It's going to help a lot of times. I don't know if you'll get paralyzed. I don't know if you'll get whatever, whatever might happen, poisoned, whatever it might be. Switch is just there. It's a staple card. You're going to run 4 in most decks. So there you go. 1 Tag Call. The Tag Call engine, we don't go super heavy into Tag Call engine, but we are running 2 tag team Pokemon. We're running the Cynthia and Caitlin, Guzma, Hala, and 2 Mallow, so that is a total of 6 tag team cards. Tag Call can just drag 2. Grab 2 of any tag team cards. So you could grab Mallow, Guzma, Hala, as well as a Lukemetal, or you could just grab 2 supporters if you already have Lukemetal, or just grab 2 Lukemetals for whatever reason. I don't know. The possibilities are endless. But Tag Call makes a lot of sense, especially in this deck. It really does well with Guzma, Hala, and Mallow, and of course, Lucario Melmetal is a staple. It's a very important card in this deck, right? So Tag Call, it just makes sense. Josh is only running 1, and I think that's not necessarily a bad decision. It's not really a card. It's more of a little consistency card that you kind of sprinkle in there to make your life a little bit easier, and it does make sense. I don't know if you if this deck necessarily warrants running 2 tag calls. Maybe if you were running an extra Lana or Guzma Hala, or maybe like, you know, if you were just running some other tag team cards, then maybe it would make sense. But for this deck, I don't really see like why you would run more than one. One makes total sense to me. We have Tool Scrapper here. Tool Scrapper is actually very clutch in a lot of scenarios. Now, a lot of Pokemon are probably going to put, you know, a variety of tool cards on that are going to make them survive hits from you. They're going to maybe put air balloons on, which can, you know, allow them to switch out for free. We don't like that. We don't really like tool cards. We like to be sort of disruptive. We like to play the long game here with Lukemetal. Tool Scrapper works out very clutch. One scenario that actually came in very clutch for Joshua, if you watched that Grand Finals match that I mentioned earlier, his opponent playing Centiskorch, you know, wasn't evolving into a Centiskorch VMAX. Of course, because Centiskorch VMAX cannot hit Zamazenta V. So he stayed in his Centiskorch V, but Centiskorch V has 210 HP, and Centiskorch V gets one hit KO'd by Zacian. So his sort of plan, or sort of his what he did in the game, was he put Big Charm on Centiskorch V. That way it got up to 240 HP, and it lived a hit from Zacian while also being able to hit Josh's Zamazentas. Now, Tool Scrapper completely got rid of that, and there was a lot of times where finding Tool Scrapper was incredibly clutch, even if it was just discarding that one Big Charm that was on, you know, his opponent's, I think it's Alberto's Centiskorch V. So that was very important, and Tool Scrapper came in very clutch. It's a one of the decks, and you don't have a lot of ways to dig through your deck, so it can be a little bit hard to find, but this deck does very well with stalling and kind of waiting, right, with hammers and dolls, right? So he was sort of able to buy time until he was able to draw Tool Scrapper, which of course came in clutch when he did find it. Yeah, so I like Tool Scrapper in this deck. There's a lot of scenarios where it comes in handy, especially since we don't have any damage modifiers in this deck, and a lot of times the math works out where you want to get rid of those big charms. So 1 Tool Scrapper, 3 Boss's Orders. It's a Pokemon deck in the standard format. You should run Boss's Orders. He's running 3. I don't think 4 is needed. 2 seems like a little bit too less. 3 just right. I like 3 Boss's Orders in this deck personally. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's Boss's Orders. Yeah, you can gust up 2 prize Pokemon on the bench, but for the most part, like, you just, you know, sometimes you're gonna need it, and you know, if I don't know, I can't justify playing Boss's Orders in every video that I make. It's always gonna be there, so just play it. Cynthia and Caitlin, it's a very good card in this deck, like for sure. It's a nice little draw supporter. You can put a supporter back from your discard pile back in your hand, whether that's you know, a Boss's Orders, or a Marnie, or a Research, or maybe even Mallow, Lana. Any supporter that you might need, you can grab it back from your discard pile. That's good because we're not running things like Eldegoss. And at the same time, it's a tag team card, so it goes well with that Tag Call. And you can grab it if you need it, if you do have Tag Call. 1 Guzma Hala. Now, I like Guzma Hala as well. Since you are running Mallow, Lana, it kind of makes sense to just kind of go all in with the and as well as the Lukemetals. It kind of makes sense to go all in with the tag team sort of engine, in a sense, like a little sprinkle of tag team engine in here. Guzma Hala is a very great card, and a deck like this that does very well off you know, special energies and tool cards. He's not running a stadium, which is very interesting to note. You know, a deck that thrives off these tool cards as well as those special energies, Guzma Hala works very well. It works even better if he was running a stadium, but he's not. It's totally fine. Yeah, man. So Guzma Hala, it's just super clutch. Discard 2 cards from your hand and grab all that good stuff. You can grab a Coding Energy, grab a Stealthy Hood, or a Metal Goggles. It's just a really nice little consistency card to grab those little special cards that you might need. And then 2 Mallow Lanas. Now, in a deck like this that potentially all your Pokemon are taking 60 less damage, a lot of times you're just in range of getting 2-hit KO'd by a lot of Pokemon. Mallow Lana can be a sort of a math fixer and can kind of not only work as a switch card in a Zacian deck, which is very important to have that switching ability and that pivot, but at the same time, it heals 120 damage. So, for instance, like if we're talking about maybe just like a Zacian 220 plus 60, that's 280. Your opponent has to hit you for 280 in one attack to knock you out. But most likely it's going to hit you for like something around like 200 to 250, whatever that might be. You know, you subtract 80 from that, right? And that's kind of how it works, is every time you get hit, you subtract, 60. So if they're hitting you for like, say, let's 240, right, I'm just going to do the math. So if they're about to hit you for 240, I don't know what hits you for 240. But you subtract 60 from that, that's 180, and then you Mallow Lana. So that effectively you only have 60 HP on your Zacian, and he has to hit you for 220 again to knock you out. So really that number threshold gets increased heavily when you're able to have Mallow Lana in your deck, and can really work out in terms of the math to where you live 3 hits, maybe even 4, other than 2 or 3, right? So it's very clutch. It can be very, very clutch, especially when you're looking to play the long game. And a deck like this that might be a tad bit slower than other decks. So Mallow Lana, definitely very good. Definitely super good. I don't know. If you're not playing Mallow Lana in Luke Metal, then I don't really know what you're doing. It's super good. I would play it. And then lastly, we got 4 Marnie and 3 Research. Like I said, we're not running Dedenne, Crobats, other sort of draw engine cards. So these are our primary draw cards throughout the game. It's interesting that he's running 4 Marnie and 3 Research. With a deck that's not running Crobat or Dedenne, you would think he would run 4 Research, but I think Josh understands that playing it slow and steady with this deck is typically the best way to go, and Marnie as a disruption card is oftentimes more valuable than just running an extra few cards in your draw support with Research, right? So 4 and 3, I think that's actually pretty smart on Josh's part. Next up, for his tool card count, he's running 3 Metal Goggles, which, of course, if we take a look, I haven't been actually clicking on these cards now that I think about it, so I apologize. Anyway, Metal Goggles here. The Pokemon this card is attached to takes 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks. Now, this as well as okay, sorry. Let me read the full card. The metal Pokemon this card is attached to takes 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks after applying weakness and resistance, and your opponent's attacks and abilities cannot put damage counters on them. That second part is actually pretty valuable if you think about it, but that first part just means that, as well as the Lucario and Melmetal-GX attack, makes all your metal Pokemon take 30 less damage. With Metal Goggles, they're taking another 30 less damage, and that's every time they get hit. And this is effectively much better than just adding HP to the Pokemon, because it kind of does it whenever they get attacked, right? And most of the time they're getting attacked more than once, right? So it's more valuable than a Big Charm. And also, your opponent's attacks and abilities can't put damage counters on this Pokemon. This works very well for a handful of cards that are actually played pretty heavily. I don't like. I'm just trying to come up with them. So Zigzagoon, I don't think can put damage counters on any of your Pokemon. Dragapult can't put damage counters on any of your bench Pokemon. Orbeetle can't put damage counters. All right, sorry about that. Okay, where were we? We were on Metal Goggles. So yeah, it prevents your opponent's Pokemon from also putting damage counters onto your Pokemon, which is useful in some matchups. It's not always super useful, but it does come in clutch. It's just a little bonus on top of course, your metal Pokemon taking 30 less damage. Just probably one of the best, tool card options that we can be running in this deck. And we also run 2 Stealthy Hood. Stealthy Hood is a newer inclusion in Luke Metal. It's not something you see too often. It has, again, some niche value to it, but it's extremely useful in certain matchups. Now, prevent all effects of your opponent's abilities done to the Pokemon that this card is attached to. Remove any such existing effects. So this means that, the card kind of explains itself. So any effects of your opponent's abilities. So let's say you're going against Poison Eternatus, and Slowbro uses its ability to poison you. It can't poison you. Zigzagoons don't work with Zigzagoons. There's a few other niche sort of cards with abilities that put effects on you. Things like Fion, so they can't switch you out with Fion. What's another one? Giratina. They can't use Giratina to discard special energies off of your Pokemon. That's a big one for Sendiscorch. So Stealthy Hood's very good in that matchup for sure. In a wider, just a wide variety of different cards in the meta that use sort of their abilities to put effects in really any way possibly, on your Pokemon. So it's a very good failsafe for a few matchups. Specifically, I think that Giratina, discarding the coating energies off your metal Pokemon, Stealthy Hood's going to be very, very good for that for sure. So I like Stealthy Hood. I think it's a very, very good inclusion in this deck, and makes this deck a lot more viable against some of those Welder decks, which might be running Giratina to specifically get rid of your coating energies, right? So definitely a very cool tool card. We run 5 tool cards in total. Next up for energy count, we run 14 energies. It's kind of a lot. It's a decent amount of energies. We got 10 normal metal energies. Of course, they work with Zacian's ability. They work with Metal Saucer. They're just, of course, they're there to use them. But we also have 4 coating energies. Josh was running 4 coating energies. Incredible card. It makes this deck so much more viable. It just eliminates, or it gets rid of your weakness to the metal Pokemon that this card is attached to. All these cards are weak to fire. With a coating energy, they are no longer weak to fire, which makes those matchups against welder decks, things like Scorch, Reshizard, Blounce. It makes the matchup that much more winnable. To be fair, that this card right here really kind of seals the deal and makes this deck that much more viable. And it's a really big reason why Lucmetal has seen a lot of success and a lot of play since Vivid Voltage came out. That's going to wrap up the deck list, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know a lot of you guys don't probably watch all the way through these videos, so if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Again, like a full explanation of a Lucmetal list isn't probably something that most people need to listen to, but for the players who don't play Lucmetal or haven't played it before, or are really sort of interested in understanding the intricacies of the deck, that's kind of it. I highly suggest that you go check out the finals video, like I said earlier, where Josh piloted this deck to a championship win at Chill Series 17. That match was very entertaining to watch. Went to a Game 3 spoilers against Scorch, so it was definitely very, definitely very interesting for sure. So go check that out, guys. Chill Series tournaments, they're every Wednesday. They're super fun. Yeah, this next one's coming up is actually going to be pretty special, Chill Series 18. It's a special Chill Series, so definitely go check that out for sure. Click subscribe if you want to be notified and keep up to date with the newest videos, newest tournament results. Like the video. If you like the video, it's always good to support the channel, and comment below whatever you want to comment below. I've been Matty from Chill TCG. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys probably tomorrow.